The chandelier above me glittered like a constellation trapped in crystal, casting jagged light across the ballroom of Seattle's Fairmont Olympic Hotel. I stood at the edge of the gala, my champagne flute untouched, the bubbles rising like my pulse. Pierce Dynamics' annual fundraiser was a masquerade of smiles and secrets, where every handshake hid a knife. At 29, I was the youngest CEO in the company's history, a title I'd clawed from the jaws of my father's legacy. Tonight, I was supposed to be untouchable. But as I adjusted the sapphire pendant against my collarbone, a cold prickle of instinct told me I was anything but. The room buzzed with tech titans, venture capitalists, and board members, their voices a low hum of power plays and flattery. My navy gown clung to me, elegant but practical, slit high enough to run if I had to. I scanned the crowd, noting the usual suspects. Nathan, my cousin, with his slick grin and Rolex glinting like a warning. Margaret, my stepmother, her laugh too loud, her diamonds too heavy. And Clara, my aunt, watching from the sidelines with eyes that missed nothing. But it was Uncle Edward, my father's brother, who drew my focus. He stood near the bar, his silver hair catching the light, whispering to Nathan with an urgency that made my skin crawl. I edged closer, weaving through clusters of tuxedos and sequins, my heels silent on the polished floor. The string quartet's melody masked my approach. I tucked myself behind a marble pillar, close enough to catch their words over the clink of glasses. "She's too close, Nathan," Edward hissed, his voice low but sharp. "Horizon Innovations is a problem. Her AI project could sink us." Nathan smirked, swirling his whiskey. "Relax, Uncle. The hacker's in place. By Monday, her precious algorithm will be Titan Cybers, and Emily will be out." My breath caught, a shard of ice lodging in my chest. Horizon Innovations was my life's work, a startup I'd built in secret to modernize Pierce Dynamics' outdated systems. My AI, codenamed Phoenix, was a cybersecurity breakthrough, capable of detecting threats faster than anything on the market. If they'd hired a hacker to steal it, they weren't just after my company, they were after my soul. And if she fights back? Edward's eyes narrowed, his knuckles white around his glass. Nathan's laugh was a blade. "She won't. Not after we leak those emails. The board will see her as unhinged. And if that doesn't work..." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper I barely caught. "The car's already rigged." The room tilted. My car, the black Tesla I'd driven here, parked in the valet lot. Rigged. The word clanged in my skull, drowning out the music. I gripped the pillar, my nails digging into stone. They weren't just planning to oust me, they were willing to kill me. I forced myself to breathe, to think. Edward and Nathan had always resented my rise, my father's trust in me over them. But this was treason, a betrayal so raw it burned. I needed proof, something to take to the board before they could spin their lies. My phone, tucked in my clutch, could record them, but I'd have to get closer, risk exposure. My other option was to slip out, check my car, and find whatever they'd planted. Both choices were a gamble, but standing here, frozen, wasn't. I stepped from the pillar, my heart a war drum, and moved toward the bar. The crowd parted, their eyes lingering, some with admiration, others with envy. I was Emily Pierce, the prodigy who'd doubled Pierce Dynamics stock in 2 years, but right now, I was a target, and every smile felt like a sniper's scope. "Emily, darling," Marguerite's voice cut through the din, her perfume a cloud of jasmine and desperation. She swept toward me, her crimson gown trailing like blood. "You must meet Mr. Carter from Nexus Solutions. He's dying to hear about your little side project." Her words were a trap, bait to gauge how much I'd revealed about Horizon Innovations. I forced a smile, my lips tight. "Later, Margaret. I need a word with Edward." Her eyes flickered, a microsecond of panic, but she recovered, laughing. "Always working, aren't you? Don't burn out, dear." I brushed past her. my pulse spiking as I neared Edward and Nathan. They'd shifted, their backs to me, still deep in their plot. I slid my phone from my clutch, thumbing the record button, and angled it toward them, hidden by the folds of my gown. 10 seconds. That's all I needed. 10 seconds of their voices, their treason, to save my company and maybe my life. The gala's perfect cover, Nathan was saying. She's distracted, schmoozing. By the time she's on the freeway, it's too late. Edward nodded, his jaw tight. Tighten Cyber's pain well, enough to bury her and her father's legacy. My finger hovered over the stop button. The recording saved. Proof, but not enough. I needed more. Names, dates, the hacker's identity. I leaned closer, my breath shallow, when Nathan turned, his eyes locking on mine. "Emily?" he drawled, his smile a venomous curve. "Eavesdropping? Bad habit." The air thickened, every eye in the vicinity swiveling toward us. Edward's face was a mask, but his hand twitched like he wanted to crush his glass. I slipped my phone back into my clutch, my movements smooth, practiced. "Just grabbing a drink, Nathan. You two looked..." Edward's laugh was a low rumble, forced. "Business talk, Emily. Nothing you'd find interesting." "Oh, I'm always interested in family business," I said, my voice light but laced with steel, especially when it's about me. Nathan's eyes narrowed, a predator sizing up prey. I held his gaze, refusing to flinch, even as my mind screamed to run, to check my car, to get the hell out. The crowd around us resumed their chatter, oblivious to the war brewing in our triangle. "Careful, Emily," Nathan said, stepping closer, his breath hot with whiskey. "Curiosity can be dangerous." "Hated." I smiled, all teeth. "So can betrayal." I turned, my gown swirling, and strode toward the exit, my heels clicking like a countdown. The valet lot was my next move. If my car was rigged, I'd find it. If it wasn't, I'd still have the recording, a weapon to wield at tomorrow's board meeting. But as I pushed through the hotel's glass doors, the Seattle night air hitting me like a slap, a new fear coiled in my gut. What if they weren't just after my company? What if they were after everything? My father's secrets, my life, the empire I'd sworn to protect. The pendant at my throat felt heavier, a gift from Dad before his heart attack last year. "Keep it close," he'd said, his voice urgent, like he knew something was coming. I reached my Tesla, its sleek lines glinting under the streetlights. The valet hovered nearby, but I waved him off, my hands steady as I knelt to inspect the undercarriage. Nothing obvious, no wires, no blinking lights, but my gut churned. I popped the hood, my fingers brushing the battery compartment when I saw it. A small black device, no bigger than a phone, wired to the brake system. A tracker. Or worse, a trigger. My phone buzzed in my clutch. A single text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or you're next." I froze, the words searing into me. They knew I was here, checking. They were watching. I yanked the device free, its wires snapping, and stuffed it into my clutch. Evidence, maybe, but also a warning I couldn't ignore. I slid into the driver's seat, my hands shaking as I started the engine. The freeway loomed ahead, a ribbon of asphalt that could have been my grave. As I pulled out, tires screeching, the gala's lights faded in my rearview. Edward and Nathan thought they'd cornered me, but they'd underestimated one thing. I was my father's daughter, and I didn't just survive. I fought. The Seattle skyline glittered indifferent to the war I was about to wage. My phone lit up again. Another text. "You can't run forever." I gripped the wheel, my jaw set. "Watch me." The drive home was a blur of adrenaline and paranoia, the city's lights streaking past like warning flares. Every shadow seemed to move, every car behind me a potential assassin. I kept the device from my car in my clutch, its weight a reminder of how close I'd come. My apartment in Belltown, a sleek high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows, was supposed to be my sanctuary. But as I stepped into the elevator, the mirrored walls reflecting my pale face, I felt like a fugitive in my own life. I locked the door behind me, triple-checking the bolts, and sank onto the couch, my gown pooling around me like spilled ink. The recording was my lifeline, but it wasn't enough. Edward and Nathan's words were damning, but they hadn't named the hacker or detailed the sabotage. I needed more. Documents, emails, anything to tie them to Titan Cyber, the rival firm they'd mentioned. Titan's owner, a billionaire named Victor Kane, was a ghost. His name whispered in boardrooms but rarely seen. If he was bankrolling this, it wasn't just about money, it was personal. I opened my laptop, the screen's glow harsh against the dark. Horizon Innovations servers were my first stop, the digital fortress where Phoenix lived. I logged in, my fingers flying over the keys, and ran a diagnostic. The code was intact, no breaches detected, but something felt off, a nagging itch I couldn't scratch. I dug deeper, checking the access logs, and there it was. An unauthorized login, time-stamped 2 hours ago, from an IP address I didn't recognize. My heart sank. They'd already gotten in. I traced the IP, my pulse hammering. It bounced through proxies. Hong Kong, Moscow, Dubai. But the final node was local, a Seattle server tied to Titan Cyber. They weren't just planning to steal my algorithm. They'd started. I slammed the laptop shut, my breath ragged. I needed allies, someone I could trust. Rachel Kim, my lawyer, was the first name that came to mind. She'd been with Pierce Dynamics since Dad's days, her loyalty unquestioned. But it was midnight, and I couldn't risk a call that might be intercepted. Instead, I texted her a single word: safe house. She'd know where to meet. I changed out of the gown, swapping it for jeans, a hoodie, and sneakers. Clothes for running, fighting, surviving. The device from my car went into a lockbox, along with a USB drive containing the gala recording. If I went down, the evidence wouldn't. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and a switchblade I kept in a drawer. Seattle's streets weren't safe tonight, not for me. The safe house was a nondescript loft in Pioneer Square, a backup Dad had set up years ago. I drove there, taking back roads, checking my mirrors. The city felt alive, predatory, its pulse matching mine. When I reached the loft, Rachel was already there, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes sharp despite the hour. "Emily, what the hell's going on?" she asked, shutting the door behind me. "Your text?" "They're trying to kill me," I said, the words spilling out. I told her everything. The gala, the recording, the device in my car, the breach in my servers. Her face hardened with each detail, her lawyer's mind already strategizing. "We need proof," she said, pacing. "The recording's a start, but we need documents, witnesses. If Edward's working with Titan Cyber, there's a money trail. I can dig, but it'll take time." "Time's what I don't have," I said, my voice tight. "They've already hacked my system. If they get Phoenix, it's over." Rachel stopped, her eyes locking on mine. "Then we fight dirty. I know a guy, ex-NSA, who can trace that IP faster than their proxies can hide. But it's risky. He's not cheap, and he's not exactly legal." "Do it," I said without hesitation. "Whatever it takes." She nodded, pulling out her phone. As she made the call, I moved to the loft's window, peering through the blinds. The street below was quiet. Too quiet. A black SUV idled at the corner, its windows tinted, its engine a low growl. My stomach twisted. They'd followed me, or worse. They'd known where I'd go. "Rachel," I whispered, not turning. "We've got company." She hung up, crossing to the window in 2 strides. Shit, that's not Edward's style. Too bold. "Titan Cyber," I said, my voice steady despite the fear clawing my chest. "They don't play subtle." Rachel grabbed her bag, tossing me a burner phone. We split up. You head to the server room at Pierce Dynamics, check the physical backups. I'll meet my contact, get the trace started. If they're watching, we don't give them a single target. I nodded, pocketing the burner. Be careful, Rachel. You too, she said, her eyes fierce. You're not just fighting for the company, Emily. You're fighting for your life. We slipped out the back, splitting into the night. The SUV didn't follow, but I felt its presence, a shadow I couldn't shake. The server room was my last hope, the only place I could salvage Phoenix's core code. But as I drove, the burner buzzed with a text from Rachel. Warehouse, midnight, bring the device. A warehouse? My instincts screamed trap, but Rachel wouldn't lead me into one. Or would she? Doubt crept in, a poison I couldn't afford. I pushed it down, focusing on the road. The server room first, then the warehouse. One step at a time, or I'd lose everything. The Pierce Dynamics headquarters loomed ahead, a glass monolith against the Seattle skyline. I parked in the underground lot, my sneakers silent on the concrete. The server room was on the 5th floor, behind biometric locks only I could access. I took the service elevator, my switchblade in hand, every creak of the building amplifying my paranoia. The 5th floor was dark, the hum of servers the only sound. I swiped my thumb on the scanner, the door hissing open. The server room was a maze of blinking lights and cables, my kingdom of code. I moved to the main terminal, logging in to check the backups. The screen flickered, then froze. A red error message flashing. Access denied. System compromised. No, I whispered, my fingers flying over the keys. I tried a back door, a fail-safe I'd built into Phoenix. Nothing. The backups were gone, wiped clean. My knees buckled, the weight of it crushing. They hadn't just breached my servers, they'd erased my life's work. A faint click echoed behind me, metal on metal. I spun, blade out, my heart in my throat. The room was empty, but the shadows moved, or maybe it was my fear playing tricks. I backed toward the door, my eyes scanning the racks. Then I saw it. A glint of steel. A tripwire stretched across the exit, rigged to something I couldn't see. Trap. They'd known I'd come here. I stepped over the wire, my breath shallow, and sprinted for the elevator. The building felt alive, hostile, every corner hiding a threat. As the elevator doors closed, my phone buzzed. The burner, not my personal one. Another text from Rachel. Warehouse changed. Pier 57. Now. Pier 57 was a tourist trap by day, deserted by night. A perfect place for an ambush. I gripped the blade, my mind racing. Rachel was either my ally or my executioner, and I was about to find out which. The pier was a skeleton of steel and wood, the Puget Sound lapping at its edges. I parked a block away, approaching on foot, the burner phone my only light. The air smelled of salt and diesel, the city's pulse faint here. I spotted the warehouse, its windows dark, its door ajar. My gut screamed to turn back, but I'd come too far. I slipped inside, the darkness swallowing me. The air was thick, stale, the faint hum of machinery somewhere deep within. "Rachel?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. A shadow moved, too fast. I ducked, a blade whistling past my ear, embedding in the wall. A figure lunged, black tactical gear, face masked. Not Rachel. I rolled, my switchblade slashing, catching their arm. They grunted, retreating, but more shadows emerged. 3, maybe 4. Mercenaries, professional, hired by Titan Cyber or Edward. It didn't matter, I was trapped. I sprinted for a control panel I'd spotted near the entrance, my coding instincts kicking in. If this was a smart warehouse, it had a security system I could hack. I pried the panel open, my fingers shaking as I hot-wired the interface. Footsteps closed in, heavy, deliberate. I typed, rerouting power to the sprinklers, the lights, anything to cause chaos. The sprinklers erupted, water blinding the mercenaries. I hit the lights, strobing them, and ran, my sneakers slipping on the wet floor. A gunshot cracked, pain searing my shoulder. I stumbled, blood soaking my hoodie. But I didn't stop. I reached a side exit, bursting into the night, the pier's cold air a shock. I collapsed behind a crate, my vision swimming. The burner buzzed, Rachel's name on the screen. I answered, my voice a rasp. "Where are you?" "Emily, thank God," she said, breathless. "I was ambushed. They took my phone, sent those texts. Get out, now!" "Too late," I said, glancing at my shoulder, the blood spreading. "They're here." "Pierce Dynamics dock," she said. "I'm 5 minutes out. Hold on." I hung up, tearing a strip from my hoodie to bind the wound. The mercenaries were close, their boots crunching on gravel. I had minutes, maybe less. But I wasn't done. I pulled the device from my clutch, the one from my car, and rigged it to a nearby propane tank. A crude bomb. If they wanted me, they'd pay. I limped toward the dock, the sounds waves a roar in my ears. Headlights pierced the dark. Rachel's car. I waved, my strength fading, as the warehouse exploded behind me, a fireball lighting the night. The mercenaries scattered, their shouts drowned by the blast. Rachel pulled up, dragging me into the passenger seat. "You're insane," she said, flooring it. "Necessary," I gasped, pain lancing my shoulder. "They took everything, Rachel. The backups, Phoenix, it's gone." "Not everything," she said, her eyes on the road. "I got the trace, the hacker's local, working out of a Titan cyberfront, and I found something else. A safe in your father's old office, unlisted. There's a key, Emily. He left it for you." I leaned back, the world blurring. A key, a safe, a chance. Edward and Nathan thought they'd won, but they didn't know me. Not really. I was Emily Pierce, and I'd burn their empire to the ground before I let them take mine. The hospital was a haze of white walls and antiseptic, my shoulders stitched and bandaged. Rachel stayed, her presence a lifeline as I drifted in and out. The news was already spinning. Warehouse explosion, no suspects, Pierce Dynamics' stock dipping. Edward would use it, paint me as reckless, unstable. I didn't care. I had the recording, the device, and now a lead on the hacker, and somewhere in my father's safe, a key to answers I didn't yet understand. I checked out at dawn, against doctor's orders, Rachel's protests ignored. The safe was my focus, hidden in Dad's old office at Pierce Dynamics. I drove there, the city waking around me, its pulse steady while mine raced. The office was untouched, a shrine to my father's reign, mahogany desk, leather chair, a photo of us in my MIT graduation. I locked the door, my hands trembling as I searched. The safe was behind a false panel in the bookshelf, its lock biometric and keyed. I pressed my thumb to the scanner, praying. It clicked, but a second lock remained, a physical key I didn't have. I tore through the desk, finding nothing but papers and pens. Then, in a locked drawer, I found it. A small envelope. My name in Dad's handwriting. Inside was a key and a note. "Trust the code, Emily. They'll come for you. Be ready." The safe opened, revealing a single USB drive and a letter. I plugged the drive into my laptop, my breath held. An encrypted file loaded, a video of Dad, his face gaunt, recorded months before his death. "Emily," he said, his voice heavy, "if you're watching this, I'm gone and you're in danger. Edward's not what he seems. There's a project buried deep, a failsafe. Find Clara, she knows." The video cut off, static filling the screen. I sat back, my mind reeling. Clara, my aunt, the quiet observer at the gala? She'd always been distant but loyal to Dad. If she knew something, I needed her. but the letter in the safe stopped me cold. It was Dad's will, a second one, naming me sole heir to a trust fund I'd never heard of. $500 million, 0 cents, hidden from the board, from Edward, from everyone. I clutched the letter, my shoulder throbbing. Edward wasn't just after my company, he was after a fortune, a legacy he'd killed to control, and Clara, wherever she was, held the key to unraveling it. I stood, pocketing the USB and letter, my resolve hardening. The gala was just the beginning. Edward and Nathan had declared war, but I was ready. Seattle streets waited, a battlefield of glass and steel, and I'd fight on my terms. They wanted a betrayal? I'd give them a reckoning. The Seattle dawn blooded gray and gold, the city's pulse a faint echo of my own as I stood in my father's old office, the USB drive from his safe await in my pocket. His words, "Trust the code, Emily. They'll come for you," burned in my mind. My shoulder throbbed, stitches from the warehouse ambush pulling, but pain kept me sharp. Edward and Nathan's betrayal had drawn blood, but I wasn't broken. Not yet. The board meeting was hours away, a crucible for Pierce Dynamics' future. Rachel's ex-NSA contact had traced the hacker to a Titan cyber front, but we needed hard proof of Edward's ties to Victor Kane, Titan's shadow CEO. The USB was my edge, but decrypting it was a race against time. I plugged it in, bypassing encryption to find a schematic, a hidden server in the basement, off the books. Dad's voice echoed, "Find Clara. She knows." Clara, my aunt, the gala's silent watcher, was my next move. My burner buzzed. Rachel, Nathan selling shares to Titan's CFO at the Four Seasons. I smirked. He didn't know Horizon Ventures, my secret investment group, was ready to pounce. "Intercept, buy them," I texted. Rachel's reply, "Done." The basement was a maze of pipes and shadows, the server's hum a faint pulse. I typed, "Phoenix," my AI's name, and it unlocked, spilling Dad's secrets, emails, records, a voice memo. "Edward rigged the accident," he said, voice heavy. "He wanted the trust fund. Clara has the last piece. My father's heart attack wasn't natural. It was murder." I copied the files, heart pounding, when a scrape echoed. I spun, switchblade out, but it was just a janitor, startled. I fled to the elevator, paranoia my shadow. Clara's Queen Anne penthouse was stark, her eyes sharper than her scotch. "Your father built a fail-safe AI," she said. "A dead man's switch to wipe Pierce Dynamics servers if Edward or Kane got close. The key's in your pendant with your biometrics." I touched the sapphire at my throat, Dad's gift. "Edward's leveraged everything to fund Titan's takeover," she added. "Kane's after revenge. Your father ruined him years ago." "I need you at the board meeting," I said. "For Dad." She nodded, wary. "Be careful, Emily. Edward's not alone." The boardroom crackled, Edward's smile a mask as I pitched the merger with Horizon Innovations. "Phoenix will make us cybersecurity leaders," I said, sliding charts showing Nexus Solutions' $200 million 0 cents contract. Edward scoffed, reckless. But Clara backed me, and Rachel dropped the bomb. "We've secured Nathan's shares via Horizon Ventures." Edward's face darkened as Rachel slid proof of his Titan ties across the table. The vote, 60-40 for the merger, made me CEO, but Edward's glare screamed war. "I'll sue," he spat. Rachel smirked. "Try it. Your case is dead." The press conference was my stage, Phoenix neutralizing a simulated attack live, reporters cheering. Victor Kane lingered at the back, his stare ablaze. Gone before I could move. That night at the Innovation Hub's dinner, Nathan begged for a job, broke and humbled. "Coding intern," I said. "Earn it." Margaret stormed out, humiliated, while Clara's hand brushed mine, a quiet alliance. The hackathon was a triumph, my team's Phoenix crushing, MIT and Titan, the crowd roaring. I announced a $10 million 0-cent scholarship in Dad's name for outsiders like me. Edward's surrender stung. Enrolled in my boot camp, fumbling code his pride dust. Global deals followed, tripling our reach, but Dad's decoded message was the real prize. Edward and Cain killed the prototype, and me. Evidence in Titan's vault. The trial was brutal. I charged Edward with conspiracy. He hit back with defamation. Sam, the whistleblower, vanished, leaving fragments of Edward's calls. I infiltrated Titan's Bellevue Tower, posing as a consultant, hacking cams to reach the vault. Cain cornered me, smirking. "Proof means nothing if you're dead." I tasered him, used his thumbprint, and grabbed the files. Recordings of Edward's Hawkins plotting my father's death. The boardroom reckoning was electric. I played the recording. "Rig, the prototype. He'll die." Edward was cuffed mid-meeting, his snarl. "You'll pay, empty." Nathan asked for a coding job, sincere. I gave him a chance. The hub became a quantum lab, Pierce Dynamics overtaking Titan, our AI the gold standard. Clara hosted a truce dinner with Edward, post-trial for Dad's sake. At the Global Summit, my blockchain platform earned a standing ovation. The anonymous shareholder, Dad's old partner, honored his memory. I appointed Rachel and James Carter to a diverse board, introduced profit sharing, and watched Titan collapse after exposing their crimes. I dedicated the Pierce Innovation Tower to Dad, his statue inscribed, "Vision over tradition." Alone I felt the cost. Lost bonds, fractured trust. Quantum Vault loomed, but my team's AI defense system was ready. Dad's last letter, found in the hub's safe, lit my path. "You were always the future. Build it boldly." I smiled. Seattle's light's a promise. The war was won, the future mine.